Have you ever wondered, in the quiet of the mind, who am I? What am I doing here? Well, let me take you on a journey. It's generally believed that the universe came into being from an infinitely small singularity, which contained within it everything that is in the universe today. This singularity underwent a massive expansion, which we call the Big Bang, scattering matter and energy in all directions. So what this means is that everything contained within you and within me came from that singularity. We all came from one. And today we find ourselves in a universe, some almost 14 billion years since that event, containing 2 trillion galaxies. One of those 2 trillion galaxies is our galaxy, the Milky Way, which itself is thought to contain up to 300 billion stars like our sun. Our sun and solar system can be found on the outskirts of the Milky Way, and contained within that is a beautiful blue oasis, which we call Earth, our home. Earth is said to be 4.5 billion years old, and it is the place that we all share for the precious few years that we call our lives. To put all of this into context, if we took that 4.5 billion years and shrunk it down into one calendar year, where its birth was January the 1st, and this present moment now is December 31st at 11:59 p.m., then the very first humans don't show up until December 31st at 11:38 p.m. This is how late we as humans have come to the party. Therefore, our lives are truly a blink of an eye, and all we're all doing here is traveling on this incredible planet for those precious few years in an ocean of space-time contained within this universe. So when we look down on our planet from space, and you can imagine this in your mind, nowhere are there borders and boundaries or separation. These are all things we've created in our minds, accepted, and play out each and every day. The truth is, we're all in this together, where our hopes and dreams are interconnected and our problems and issues are shared. And there's no doubt that we as humans have come very far in that short period of time. Yet our generation, like no generation before us, is at a critical crossroads, where our way of life, if not our very existence, is under threat. So what I'm going to share with you today is what those problems are, a solution that can help fix them, and why you are the most important part in all of this. So let's discuss the problems. The current population of the world is 7.7 billion people. Back in 1970, it was half of that, and some experts believe that by 2050, it's going to be north of 10 billion people living on our planet. This expansion has put a huge strain on basics like clean water, food, energy, and other vital elements for our survival. And as a byproduct, we have created some very large global problems which now threaten us all. So I want to share with you some figures to put that into context. Half of the world's population lives on less than $2.50 a day. In fact, 1/3 of those people live in extreme poverty, less than $1.25 a day. UNICEF has estimated that on average, 22,000 children a day die in poverty. Nearly 1 billion people on our planet use unclean drinking water. Water scarcity affects over 40% of the world's population. And some experts believe that by 2030, which is just around the corner, over 50% of the world's water needs will not be met. We are currently living in the midst of the 6th largest mass extinction of species on our planet. It is estimated that by 2050, 30 to 50% of all species on our planet will be made extinct. A recent UN report has pegged that number to being 1 million species going extinct because of human action. I can't start to overstate the devastating consequences that will have on every one of us if even half of that comes to pass. And just to put it into a little bit more context, take one species like the bee. It is on path for extinction. And if the bee goes extinct, it will have widespread consequences for everyone on this planet when you consider that one bite of every 3 that you take in your food is dependent on the bee. Now, there are a plethora of other problems around the world that are globally affecting all of us, and I don't have time to go into each one, but they would include things like pollution and its effect on climate change, education, basic healthcare, that since 2000 there's been a rapid increase in natural disasters around the world. Human rights is under threat around the world, and we're wasting food at an unimaginable rate. All these problems are interconnected, meaning that as one problem gets worse, so do the others. And eventually you have a runaway train, which then can't be stopped. Time is running out fast. We have to find effective ways to tackle these problems. If not, these problems will tackle us all. So what's the solution here? Well, the physics of the situation initially demands one thing: a unified approach. Well, you can't solve global problems unless we're united together to solve them. And right now, we're depending on 2 avenues to solve these issues, which are not going to bear the fruit that we need to solve them: global leaders and politicians and global charities. So let's discuss each one. Global leaders and politicians represent their group of people and their self-interest at local and national levels. So that means that when they come around the table to discuss large global issues that threaten us all, they naturally bring with them a what's in it for me and my people mentality. Now, this is always doomed to fail because what benefits the few doesn't correlate to what benefits the whole. And I'm not wanting to point my fingers at global leaders and politicians per se. It's the systems that are the problem. So think about this. The systems that we have in place right now, they've been there for a long time, and they were put in place to govern and regulate a world which was more local and regionalized, not globalized and connected like we are today. Therefore, these systems were never designed for this purpose, and they keep failing to bring up solutions that are required. Now, the second avenue that we're depending on are the global charities, many of whom have been around since before we were all born. We've donated to them, but they're not going to solve these problems within our lifetimes, and let me explain to you why. Global charities work in competition with each other for our attention and our money in the form of donations. So that means that they're set up as 2 businesses: the business of raising money and then the business of their charitable endeavors. Now, this model is generally inefficient because it takes a lot of money to raise money, and then it takes more money and resources to keep marketing their work, to keep a steady stream of revenue coming in. So all those big expenses, along with other expenses that they have, result in what? Only a small part of what we donate going towards the charitable endeavors themselves. There's simply got to be a better way than what we're depending on. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. So what's the solution here? Well, I've got one that I'd like to share with you that can work. So today is July 20th, 2019. It is exactly 50 years to the day since Armstrong and Aldrin first stepped foot on the moon. In fact, Neil Armstrong was born less than 200 miles west of where I stand today. What has this got to do with what I'm talking about here? Okay, so let me explain. In 1961, John F. Kennedy pointed to the moon, and he said we would go there, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. And we imagined what many thought was impossible, and we made it possible. In an age when computers the size of cars and phones still had rotary dials, we united and pulled together resources, knowledge, and imagination, and we made it to the moon. This was an extreme demonstration of the power and innovation at the heart of humanity. But below the surface, the moon missions taught us some very, very deep lessons about ourselves. The moon missions taught us that we as humans are unlimited. We have everything available to us to do whatever we wish. As long as we dream and unite, we can make anything happen. The moon missions taught us that to achieve any dream, no matter how large or small, all we need are three basic components to get going. Desire to do it, funding to help us get there, and organizing ourselves so we can meet our objectives. And then everything else then follows, even the unknown details. So who plays the most important role here? Well, you do, I do, we actually all do together. Remember that first threshold we all have to cross and meet. A united effort. We, the people of Earth, are the only group of people who can solve these large global problems by collectively unleashing our potential. And for the very first time in human history, we have all the technology and pieces in place to make this a reality. Desire, funding, and organization, just like it was for the moon missions, these are the critical ingredients to get us on our way. So let's discuss each one. The desire to make this world a better place is already hardwired into our hearts. We are loving creatures by nature. Our happiness is intrinsically connected to other people's happiness and well-being. We don't like to see people suffer, so that's already in place. So how do we fund and organize ourselves to a scale where we can really start making mass global change happen for each one of us? Well, let's talk about funding. $1. It's an inconsequential amount to most of us. Yet imagine a global movement of millions and perhaps even 1 billion people, all committed to wanting to see this global change for each other and themselves, each donating $1. Well, that would be a good place to start. But let's break this down further. Imagine this united group of people, each donated $1 a week or $1 a month. It's still an inconsequential amount to each. Yet for a global movement of this size, you've immediately created a steady stream of millions and then potentially billions of dollars. But additionally, let's not stop there. Make this micro-donating of these dollars that we have fully democratic. So when you're making these micro-donations, you can choose where you want it to go. Clean water, poverty, wildlife conservation, pollution, whatever your heart desires. Additionally, imagine if we could make these micro-donations something that's a new way of how we're operating on social media. So it's easy for us to micro-donate $1 towards things that matter to us, like people's birthdays, anniversaries, countless achievements. And then we could share it on places like Facebook and Twitter so other people can join in and be part of this movement. Now you can see how we can raise insane amounts of money in a micro-donation way from a global population. So how do we organize ourselves? Well, globally, there are thousands of projects doing some innovative work towards solving these issues. The problem is, many of them are under-resourced and underfunded. So what do? Well, we identify and vet the most efficient, effective, scalable, and sustainable of these projects, and we fund them. This way they are focused on the work that they're supposed to do, not worrying about where their funding is coming from. And we make sure they hit their milestones to get a continuous stream of money. We don't stop there, because we work with them so that they're communicating with each other. Why? For the simple reason that they can share best practices, new technologies, new methodologies. So we'll all benefit from a rising tide that's lifting all boats. Now, to bring all of this together, there would have to be a central hub, a platform that can connect the global donors with the global projects around the world. Well, imagine in your mind a social media hub where you can not just micro-donate, but you can commune with other like-minded people like yourselves around the world, and at the same time, follow in real time those different projects around the world as they're ramping up. So you're not just micro-donating blindly. You are an active witness and participant to the global change that is happening on a mass scale. And all of this would be available from something as simple as a smartphone. What does that mean? Well, that means that we don't have to go out and protest and march and vent to people who clearly aren't listening. Instead, we are part of a united global movement from the comfort of our own sofas. And because raising this kind of money would be ultra efficient, it would be like running our cars on water. Now, how do I know this? Well, a group of us from around the world united to see, could we build a platform, an organization like this, and pilot it? We called ourselves Unity One Global. And everything I just mentioned to you, imagine if we could do this. We created it and successfully piloted it. It worked, and it's scalable. So what does this mean? It means the people that solve these large global problems which threaten us won't be the leaders and politicians. It'll be everyday people like you and I who've decided we need to stand up. This is a challenge we must meet. The old system, which has got us in this ditch in the first place, won't be what pulls us out. It can't. It's gummed up and it's failing in front of our eyes. Instead, we should take inspiration from things like the moon missions, or even observe how beautifully nature is coordinated, where everything cooperates with everything else to strike that perfect balance. So this new methodology is rooted in cooperation, not conflict and competition, which has got us in this mess in the first place. My friends, hope is not lost. It's just that we've been looking for it in all the wrong places except the most obvious, in ourselves. I know a solution is possible. We've done our homework. We've built a platform to take us there to show that this can be done. But what it fundamentally requires is a shift in our perception that somehow others will solve these problems. They won't, they can't. Instead, embrace the fact it's going to take a little effort from a lot of us to get this done. So in conclusion, if you knew the very day, hour, and minute that you were going to die, how would that change the way you'd live the rest of your life from that moment on? Would you continue to go to the same job, eat the same food, be entertained the same way, and sleep over and over again like many of us still do? Or would we want to fill our lives full of meaning so that our lives are then a statement of something bigger than ourselves? Isn't that why we're all here? Have you ever wondered, in the quiet of your mind, who am I? What am I doing here? Well, the likes of Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, and Nelson Mandela, and countless others made their lives a statement of who they were and what they were doing here. And if one mind contained within so many incredible individuals can forever change the course of humanity, what can 1 billion minds united as one achieve? We can finally find out, but it starts with you. Thank you.